Well, hi, everyone. I just wanted to say hello and thank you for coming to the Kelsay Books December 2023 reading. And I just appreciate everyone being here. The first person that we're going to hear from today is Constance Brewer. And when she's done reading, then Delisa is going to go ahead and introduce the rest of the guests. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Constance Brewer. I'm going to be reading a couple of poems from Prayer Gardening. Can you see that? Which is a chapbook I co-authored with Kathleen, and Mickelson, who will also be reading today. So my first poem is After a Long Absence, I Return. I pass a flock of red-winged blackbirds. They startle, rise and fall like breath, arrow away across an open field, disappear into fine river mist. Alone in a shrouded world, hills rise from thinning fog. After so long away, the road is new. I trust the GPS, drive to our old house, an approaching specter in the fog. Hellhounds erupt out the back door. My brother follows, an apparition, heavier, beard-tinged gray, deep voice calling off the dogs, greeting me. He looks like our father. The mist time evaporates. Morning sun hammers at clouds as my heart rises and rises again, following the path of blackbirds, whirling, an exhalation of haze. My second poem is The Golden Path. Up on the mountain, night smooth as suspicion, sun long set, I walk under the moon's irrepressible glow, attuned to rising wakefulness on dune snow. Soft moon, soft light, I stumble on the path, bark of wolf smothered by trees, distant danger ignored. I reach a ledge jutting out from the rocks, ease to sit. In the shadowed pit of the valley, lights reflect up to mingle with the dark cave of night. My eyes adjust to nuance. Pinprick stars on black velvet, distance our commonality. My breath ghosts to the heavens. I don't know whether to reach for the surety of constellations above or the comfort of light below. I grab a fistful of each, twine them around me like prayer. Thank you.
Lovely. Oops.
Our next readers will be Margaret Duda, followed by Kathleen Mickelson and Jane Muschenetz. Oh, Jane, I'm sorry. Jane Muschenetz. Margaret is a recent Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominee. She's the author of I Come from Immigrants, which is a 122-page volume containing poems of parents who immigrated from Hungary in the 1920s, relatives in Hungary, her bicultural childhood, and losing her husband. The book includes 26 photos, some over 100 years old. Margaret is also a prize-winning short story writer, the author of 5 nonfiction books, and is working on another volume of poetry. Margaret.
Margaret, you're muted.
Yes. That's better.
There, okay. Let's see here. Can you see the large photo on your page? Okay.
Yes, we can.
All righty. Okay. All right. My first poem is one about I have stories of my interesting life, childhood, as well as stories of my parents in Hungary when they came to America and relatives left in Hungary. And then the final section is about my husband. This one is, I come from immigrants. I come from Hungarians who left almost everything behind to ensure their children had chances they only dreamt of as they boarded immigrant ships from Bremen to New York. I come from a blizzard the night I was born in the city, as my mother pushed and my father prayed in the chapel because a young doctor warned him we might not survive. I come from white leather shoes, bronze for eternity, on a base that would eventually hold my wedding photo, but first held the portrait of a Hungarian-American family. I come from riding my tricycle in circles as my mother churned butter, sang Hungarian ditties, and gathered eggs to trade for necessities in the general store during the war. I come from a home where only Hungarian was spoken until I was 5, when English was needed for school and cousins were no longer the only friends I understood. I come from Shirley Temple curls made with strips of rags, then unwound and brushed into ringlets on my mother's finger and held in place with huge bows on clips in my dark brown hair. I come from dancing the Czardas with my father, feet flying at Hungarian weddings, or racing my father in the ocean, my mother watching from shore, ready to call a lifeguard. I come from picnics where men twirled slabs of bacon on sticks over fires, dripping grease onto thick bread covered with pieces of tomatoes, onions, and green peppers, topped with chunks of bacon. I come from a house with white siding filled with the fragrant odors of my mother's cooking, hiding me stomping barefoot on ferment grapes, which my father turned into Tokachi wine, as his family did in Hungary. I come from numerous moves to improve our circumstances, but angels always followed us and trimmed our tree on Christmas Eve with ornaments and sweets, then lit the candles on the branches. I come from immigrant parents who found the courage to leave Hungary and generations of ancestors all the way back to the African Exodus, all of whom travel with me still as I dance the Czardas, feet flying with joy. And then the cover is a portrait of my grandmother, my father's mother, and a mourning portrait, which was a tradition in Hungary. This is entitled Mourning Portrait. Looking like Bergman's characters, they grieve for the body in the coffin. In the 40s, it was a tradition among Hungarian villagers to take a mourning portrait.
There
In
it
the
is.
40s, it was a tradition among Hungarian villagers to take a mourning portrait with relatives and close friends gathered behind the open casket. I have one of Papa's mother, Kathleen, my grandmother, and relatives I never met, trapped in Transylvania, given to Romania after World War I. Letters, not kisses or warm hugs, was how we had exchanged longings for one another. Mine in English, hers in Hungarian, my parents as translators for our words of love. When grandmother was 76, a sepia-tone mourning portrait arrived. A black babushka covered her hair amid the mountain of white lace draped over her and the coffin. My father's sister Erzsi, dressed all in black, and brother Janos, who most resembled Papa, sat in the front row, the only two left at home. Janos wore a suit that looked vaguely familiar and was the only male wearing a regular tie. I remembered all the boxes of used clothing hiding paper money Mama sewed into the thick linings because they easily got through the stringent customs of Romania. Unacquainted with most of Papa's clan, I scoured all the dejected faces for any resemblance to me. I found none in the expressions drooping with grief. Papa said I look like his mother. Many, many years later, Papa died suddenly of a massive heart attack. I wrote to tell relatives in Transylvania, the ones who might still be alive and now spoke only Romanian. They hired an interpreter to write to me and asked why I sent no mourning portrait. I wrote back, finding it hard to explain that we take no such photos in America, preferring to remember the dead as they lived. I never heard from my relatives again, making me feel as if I had robbed them of their due. 70 years later, I stare at the aging photo of my grandmother and grieving kith and kin and lament the loss of my Hungarian family. And then, because one of these poems has special meaning for me, I'm going to recite 3 poems about my husband who died 17 years ago. Time travel. I've never known how to explain how I felt the first time I saw him in that lecture hall. His friend, whom I just met, and I walked in together, both late, neither knowing the site had been changed. He stood up from his seat and started toward us with his dark wavy hair and cleft chin. I gasped, stifling my recognition. 60 years later, I still recall feeling I knew him from another time, another life in another time, a feeling I never understood. A Slavic Rusin, his ancestors roamed the slopes of Carpathian mountains. And his tribe interacted with the Magyars, my ancestors. The 2 cultures socialized and even intermarried in the Middle Ages, mixing their blood and DNA for all time. I didn't know all this that night. I only knew I would marry him again and rejoin our lives once more in another country centuries later. And the next poem has great meaning for me because I submitted my manuscript to Karen and did not know that she was in Wales at the time and about to go to the home of Dylan Thomas. It's entitled Welsh Tea with Dylan Thomas. We hiked Cliff Road from Larne, noticed a peregrine perched on a grassy cliff, scanning the small waders in the tidal marsh, stalking his prey in the estuary of the Taff. Approaching the writing shed, eggshell blue, we peered through a small window to see where the high school dropout composed lyrical lines to keep Southwest Wales in our minds forever. A scarred pine table, someone painted red, 3 mismatched chairs, 1 missing slats, crinkled strips of paper with words he loved tacked to the simple whitewashed walls. Windows placed to capture seascape and sunset, like the crumpled pages of failure on the floor. There, since he and Caitlin, forever locked in conflict, strode to Brown's Hotel for their nightly pints. The sky turned misty, the air cold, as the biting winds of fall pierced our jackets, warning us to move down the footpath to the boathouse tucked into the coastline cliff. We approached the 2-story house bought by a patron just 4 years before Dylan died of pneumonia, a morphine overdose, and 18 whiskeys on his 39th birthday. Pushing open the front door, we explored a museum, the living room with his father's desk, and moved to the dining room tea room that offered scones, bare-breath fruit bread, and 2 kinds of Welsh tea. We opted for the small table beside a window overlooking waterbirds wading in mudflats, the only tourist to hear Dylan's voice imploring his aging father to rage against the dying of the light. Tea and hot scones arrived. Glancing at my husband, I saw his eyes brimming, his mind far away. Focused on his own father, trapped in dementia, his brain turned to dust years before his body. Sipping Glengettie tea, we watched the peregrine as he pulled back his wings, dove toward the Taff, and snatched a long-billed curlew for dinner. Some deaths are easier than others. And finally, a very short one. Apple tea in a fairy chimney. I feel the strength of my husband's hand as he leads me up the uneven steps carved into the side of a fairy chimney in the Gorama Valley of Cappadocia. We enter a sand-colored room, chiseled and tough, settle close on a stone ledge covered with pillows, admire the woven carpet beneath our small table, and inhale the aroma of traveling through time. A sandaled Turkish waiter in a long white robe brings apple tea in clear hourglass-shaped cups, then lights a tall candle, smiles, and quickly ducks back out the door beside a window with no pane. 16 years after my husband's death, I reach back across 2 million years. Once again, eternity lets me feel his hand in mine in the flickering candlelight of a fairy chimney.
Wow.
Thank you. I hope that some of you, will buy the book because it is filled with stories of immigrants and my childhood. And then, of course, we go on to my husband. And I would be so pleased if somebody bought it and liked it. That's let's see. How do I get back? Whoops. There. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes. And I can breathe again. Thank you so much.
It's a wonderful book, Margaret.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Thank you so much. It was actually COVID was very kind to me. When we were in lockdown, there was nothing to do in the house and I was living alone. So I started looking through old photograph albums and found the ones my mother brought from Hungary. And that started it. And on we went. And I'm still working. Now I'm working on another one, which is a sequel.
Thank you for sharing that, Margaret.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Now we get to hear from Kathleen and then Jane.
All right. Well, I'm Kathleen Mickelson coming to you from cold and snowy Minnesota, right outside Minneapolis. I'm going to read a couple of poems to you from this book, Prayer Gardening, co-authored with Constance Brewer, who read earlier. I hope you like them. The first one is called Early Morning Super Blue Blood Moon. And for those of you that don't know what that is, a blue moon is the second full moon in a month. A super blue blood moon is a moon that's very close to the Earth and is also having a total lunar eclipse. So that's where this poem came from. Early morning, super blue blood moon. Cold, but not sub-zero. Snow so fluffy, I can clear it with my breath. Trees model our view of the setting moon. We walk to our block's end, wonder why more of our neighbors are not outside, eyes to the west. We find one man leaning on his shovel. His wife dashes across the snowy road, stands nearby. He tells us his friend called early, said go outside, the sky is clear. We watch the moon blush in Earth's shadow, then fade as the sun rises, grateful the clouds parted, even though it wasn't just for us. The second poem was published a couple of years ago in Cosmos Journal, and it's also included in the chapbook, called How Quickly the Light Changes. The moment we step into morning dusk, commingled muskiness lingering on our skin, it all slides, slips, shifts to Aurora's bright dawn. A near full moon dips below the western edge. As we walk, steam engines, puffs of breath mark our way. This cold, late winter morning, so temporary in its grasp, mirrors other beginnings, other openings to holiness. Sharp air on my tongue. I want to kneel as I receive it, whisper thanks for this breath and the next and the next. I grasp your gloved hand as proof we are in this together. Thank you.
That was so beautiful. So wonderful to be here together and all. It's so great to be in this together. I'm Jane Muschenetz, and I'll be reading 2 poems from All the Bad Girls Wear Russian Accents. The first will be the title poem, and the second won the Good Life Review Literary Prize. And Kelsay, thank you for nominating it for the pushcart just recently. That was delightful to hear. All the bad girls wear Russian accents. In the movies, villains have accents. Sometimes German, but mostly Russian. Hard edge, lyrics of something forbidden, severe haircuts, steel blue eyes, and an appreciation for Tchaikovsky, for a black swan kind of life, for fairy tales built from curses. Say something in Russian, the boys beg me at school, hoping for death threats, nuclear arms codes, or at least a good cuss word or 2. I answer, krasavitsa, a bullet through every consonant. Bare my teeth on the V, exhale over that last imply red lipstick. What does it mean? I don't tell them. Only smile as they try to shape the unfamiliar with their mouths, repeating my mangled conviction over and over, laughing. They will shout it after me. I know from experience. Throw it out with pride for remembering the next time they see me, maybe even use it as a perpetual greeting for the only Russian speaker they know, which is why I won't teach them anything ugly. It will only be poured back over me later. A feedback loop, quicker than some. Krasavitsa in Russian means gorgeous woman, which in the movies, all the best villains are. Thank you. For those of us forced to flee, the world is forever shrinking down to a single question. What can you carry? The suitcase of your heart closed tight on all those things there was no room to bring. Your memories of home, the snowflake moments of your youth, the blooming lilac tree outside your bedroom window. A heavy burden saps your strength on a long journey. Bring only what you need. Homes can be built again. A new tree can be rooted. Survive. When you have nothing left to plant, become the seed. Thank you.
It's not fair that I have to read after that, because that become the seed still chokes me up. And to hear you read that was really awesome to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another, our next reader, another treat is our next featured reader is Kathleen Chandler. And She is a American-born Canadian poet who is coming to us from Uruguay. So that's kind of fun. She's the author of Lines of Flight, shortlisted for the Poets Prize. She's the winner of the Richard Wilbur Award for the Frangible Hour, and her 5th and 6th collections, Pointing Home and Annals of the Dear Unknown, are available at Kelsay Books. After she reads, we have our next guest reader, who is S. Salazar. So Catherine and S. Salazar.
Thank you, Delisa, for all your work, and thank you, Karen, also for inviting me to read today, and for all your team, and for your invaluable assistance in editing 3 of my books, including the very first one, This Sweet Order, a long, long time ago. I'll be reading from Pointing Home, and thought I'd read poems relating to the different homes I've lived in different cities, countries, continents, and hemispheres. Although I was born in New York City, my earliest recollections are from Poughkeepsie, New York, where we lived for a time in the early 50s. The first poem is Lessons at Fallkill Creek on page 23 of the book. And there's an epigraph, translated means still waters run deep. It's written in Sapphic stanzas. I was only 5, but I've not forgotten. You and I set off as we do each morning, hand in hand. We walk in the April sunshine, father and firstborn. Halfway to the Samuel Morse School, we would sometimes stop to see how the creek was faring. Fallkill Creek that runs through Poughkeepsie, draining into the Hudson. Rain from upstate wetlands and marshes, seeping, racing southward, coursing through stone wall channels, forms a perfect habitat for the bluegill, darter, and minnow. Now we're at the Catherine Street and Mansion Crossing, looking over the iron railing at the water, higher than ever, flowing steady and silent. Then your quiet words, how it is that stillness mustn't be confused with a lack of passion, why it is that rivulets lead to rivers, rivers to oceans. After my father contracted polio in April of 1956, thank you, we moved back to the Wyoming Valley in Pennsylvania, where maternal and paternal ancestors have lived since the 1700s, and where the action of my latest book, Annals of the Dear Unknown, takes place. An entire section of Pointing Home, Madison Street, a series of 25 vignettes written in Dorn sonnets, describes some early childhood happenings and persons. One of my favorites is Slow Burn. Page 39. Slow burn. The children miss their favorite swimming hole up at the creek now that autumn settled in. This afternoon, one of Glen Alden's trucks has brought a mix of pea and chestnut coal. They'll shoot it down into our cellar bin, 4 tons, just over $87. We all watch as the monster dump box lifts and tilts. The blue-black slow burn payload shifts and rumbles to the dank, dark space below. Our radiators, working full-time till next March, will clank and gurgle, dry the snow from woolen mittens, intercept the chill creeping into the house as blizzards blow pale spoon drift down our street from Beaumont Hill. In 1972, I moved permanently to Montreal, Canada, where my husband and I raised 2 children and where we worked in French, English, and Spanish for the next 45 years. So the next poem is Votive on page 79. Votive. St. Joseph's Oratory, Montreal. Between the crypt and dark magmatic rock of the mountain's flank, along a blue-domed hall 104 feet long, I slowly walk. Ex-votos hanging on the chapel wall, canes and crutches, testify en bloc to gratitude and grace. This same motif repeats in 8 imposing bas-reliefs. Although I've come here many times to pray for families and friends, to make a deal with God through blessed sainthood of Frère André Bessette, to write intentions down, to kneel and kiss the relic, I'm here today amid 10,000 candles, this surreal, disorienting ambience of grief and hope, to test my limits of belief. A candle for each of the 26 gunned down at Sandy Hook. Each nascent flame, fragile yet deadly, flickers on the wicks, irresolute as doubt, yet hot as shame. So as I watch the self-sustaining mix burn down, I mourn, yet curse the waiting game in Washington, the sad, misguided thief of time, those dates, unbearable and brief. My next home in Uruguay, also my husband's homeland, has become our snowbirding sanctuary post-retirement. I'm actually in Punta del Este, Uruguay now, where the bougainvillea are in bloom, the horneros are building their nests, and where over a dozen streets in my neighborhood alone are named after Latin American poets. In addition to my own poems, Pointing Home also contains my English translations of 10 Uruguayan women poets. The next poem, Poetisa, from the 3-part poem Shakespeare's Sisters, is dedicated to one of Uruguay's greatest poets, Maria Eugenia Basterreda, about whom I wrote an essay which appears on the Mezzocamin Women Poets timeline. So, Poetisa, page 68. In memory of Maria Eugenia Basterreda, Uruguayan poet, 1875-1924. The mild pampero wafts a balm of pine and eucalyptus through the spindrift air. She draws the velvet curtains as each sign of life appears. Shadow fish clouds tear the sky apart. A lone hornero peeps. A venteveo calls. Then all too soon, though now it seems to her the whole world sleeps unmindful of a waning austral moon, the customary rough, pragmatic clamor of trams and city workmen will dispel beatitude with bugle, honk, and hammer, while lifting like a vampire pipistrelle, a daring line takes off for distant caves as she pours coffee, butters toast, behaves. Okay. Finally, no matter where I am, whether in Canada or in Uruguay, when I think of home and dream of home, it invariably is Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. So the last poem is Scintille on page 100. Scintille. Sky of verdigris, ocean of slate. Threadbare clouds shapeshift, scatter, then disintegrate. Their essence gone the way of plans which once discarded, drift from consciousness. She puts the coffee on, lights a cigarette, attends the morning denouement, the daily snare of memories that give rise to regret for what was real. A creaky seventh stair, an ivy-patterned wall, a simple oaken Morris chair, a ceiling crack, a chiffreau behemoth in a hall, a red formica table, bric-a-brac, umbrellas by a door. A girl who once would sit and track beveled beans inching their way across the kitchen floor. But not this one. An overspill of dreams has come once more to whelm, inexorably, as streams are drawn into the sea, and from that pure and loving realm, her fountain pen with ink of peacock blue. Thanks again, Karen and team.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'm newer to Kelsay Books. My book was released in August of this year, so I'm really excited to be here and join so many talented poets. I will be reading from Raíces, Relics, and Other Ghosts, so we got a little bit more Espanol happening in here. So my background is I've always been taught that I am a mixed Puerto Rican person, and it took until COVID for me to actually feel disconnected enough from everything in order to dive into what the disconnect with my heritage meant to me. And so the poem that I'm going to be reading today is kind of it's the poem that made me realize what's at stake if I don't continue writing poetry about my family and my heritage and my language, or my lack of all of those things. And it's called Tell Me. Again, weave the wisps of tales veiled in vines, fading in age and disuse, into something I can rewind in my mind like a movie. Remind me that abuela crushed tostones fritos in a paper lunch sack with her fists. That abuelo constructed ships and shoved them into bottles. Tell me how abuela rubbed her feet together like sticks that start a fire to keep her feet warm. How abuelo was an artist, a mechanic, before a drunkard. How they were both builders and gardeners and pioneers. Fill me in about moving to the Bronx, not staying in Puerto Rico or Venezuela or Spain or wherever else in whatever new version of this story you tell me this time. Recite to me the angle of abuelo's fingers as he flipped through a notepad to animate cartoons at your hospital bedside. How abuela's hums echoed the salsa in her hips while she cooked dinner for a family still together. Tell me again about the cocky teenage boy who marched out to her farmhouse to serenade her. Tell me about her saying no. Disclose to me the fragments of photos and documents of the lives I never lived by. Create a verbal map. Count off the paces to where I can find anything tangible to hold on to. Explain to me why I hold on to what doesn't concern me. Show me how you made a mosaic from the broken pieces of your childhood. Instruct me how to build something strong from the shards of mine. Please tell me. Remind me how many tablespoons of sofrito go in abuela's pollo guisado and where the crucifix in her kitchen hung. Remind me it wasn't always this way. That abuelo pinched abuela's butt and honked like a goose because of some inside joke from an early date together. That abuela only ever wanted her husband and the life they started together. That their house didn't always shake beneath frustration and fear. That love lived in the hearts of the people who hurt you, who hurt me too. Tell me again, because one day there will be no one around to tell me again. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break here. Is that right, Delisa?
That's right.
Okay, we'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to go ahead and start. Delisa's going to introduce our next readers. Thank you.
So our next feature reader is Shutta Crum, and she will be followed by Janet Rives and Victoria Twomey. Shutta has run 8 Royal Palm Literary Awards. She's had 150 plus poems published. She's been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, authored 18 traditionally published books for children, and 3 chapbooks of poetry with Kelsay Books. When You Get Here won a gold RPIA, and Meet Me Out There is her latest chapbook. It was just released a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So Shutta will read, and then we will have Janet and Victoria follow her.
Okay, well, hi, everybody. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Delisa. Thank you, Olivia, everybody working behind the scenes. I'm going to share my screen and we'll see if what I just said works. I want to read the poems from the screen with the photos there. Let me get up to the top. There, can you see it? Anybody, Delicia, you want to nod your head? Can you see?
Looks good.
Yes, we can see it. It looks great.
Good. Okay. All right. This first poem I want to read is Georgia by the Window, and it comes from Meet Me Out There, the latest Kelsay book. I wanted to show this because I wanted you to see the picture of her down there and her painting. Alfred Stieglitz, her lover and husband, took a lot of photos of her in the nude as a very sylph-like, dainty, lovely thing that she later had to fight against. And so I wrote this poem called Georgia by the Window. He took photos of you, a delicate sylph unfolding, rising, your ribs lifting small breasts into muted light, your pubic hair claiming the shadows, a wanton nest of dark. But you were never his insubstantial creature of the air. It took the desert to uncover the taut brown crux of yourself. It took relentless sun to leather you until you were thorn and true. It took the sweep of black skirts over bleached bone and sturdy boots laced tight to paint the Sangre de Cristo mountains. His camera did get your hands right. Those spidery fingers, long, arched, strong enough to deify light, to strip down to the naked weight of what is sacred. His photos were lovely, but later she kind of fought against that whole image of herself. Okay, the next poem comes from my second book with Kelsay. It's The Way to the River. And I thought I'd just read this because it's fun and it gives you a little insight into my background. I have 18 aunts and uncles who many of the uncles were deacons in the church and, southeastern Kentucky. And there were lots of baptisms in the creek that ran through the holler in front of my grandmother's house. Baptized at the creek. All us kids stood wide-eyed. Cousin Billy stuck his thumb in his mouth as they laid Aunt Gertie backward under the brown waters of the creek. Right then and there, sacredness came floating round us. The holler got so warm and holy I could hardly breathe. I reached out and squeezed Sissy's hand. Aunts and uncles standing witness shouted hallelujah and raised their arms to heaven. Billy peed on a tree. We giggled. Uncle Win snagged him with his arm. Grandpa prayed, praise the Lord. When they helped Aunt Gertie up the bank of the creek, her clothes clung sopping over her rounder parts, the way honey clings to a biscuit. I tried not to look. We ate cornbread, fried chicken, green beans, and ham hocks, homemade rolls, canned peaches, and grandma's pies. Billy wiggles, corralled between Uncle Win and Grandpa. Cousin Luann played the guitar, her boyfriend the harmonica. Sissy swung Billy round and round. Aunt Dixie and Uncle Walter Lee sang, their mournful voices rising and then swooping deep, flowing into us. Praise the Lord. Later, in the cool dew fall hour, we went back to the creek. We chased fireflies and threw stones into the water. Too dark to see the ripples widen, but we knew they lapped ashore, washing away our sins. Such good memories of families, family get-togethers. This next poem is from the latest book, Meet Me Out There, and it's just for fun. So, it's called God's Second Thought. What the hell do I do with this rib? I imagine God said something like that as Adam lay bleeding at his feet. Perhaps the Almighty, momentarily startled, waved the rib about, hoping for a quick idea. Perhaps he flung it as the first boomerang and found it was wayward, falling defiantly and knocking an apple from a tree. Perhaps, having retrieved the rib, he stood glorious in a shaft of light and saw how elegant, how smooth it was, how strong, and yet how fragile. Perhaps Adam groaned while clutching his side and disturbed God's godly thoughts. Then the Holy One had a second idea about mankind. Why not a helpmeet? Someone to nurse that first one, to stop his bleeding. And while he was at it, why not someone to rub his own haggard back? Someone to tell him what to do when he lost his thoughts or got lost in them? What with all those heavy dinosaurs and frantic amoebas mucking about? Certainly the Alpha and the Omega could use someone to tell Adam to get over it. So God slid heavenly fingers along that shapely bone and declared, of course, I'll create Eve. Later, his work done, the Divine One likely trotted home with a good dog for company, thinking surely there'd be a hot meal and maybe even a warm piece of pie waiting, made by that latest lovely human. Finally, I imagine God coming into his house and stopping on the rug to wipe the nasty things he'd created off his shoes. Perhaps Adam limps in after, and the two of them stare at the empty plates, the can of beans, the can opener on the countertop, and at the apple on the table, half eaten. That just for fun. Okay, this next poem was published originally in Boulevard magazine, and just made me think about people I loved in the past, even if they weren't always the cream of the crop. This is called Lesser Jewels. Cloudy topaz, crazed quartz, chipped garnet, we were the lesser stars of the firmament. We were the door slamming up yours, the mouthy girl enigmas, all long legs, bared midriff, skirts hiked up. Not cheerleaders, not scholars, not future homemakers of America. We were the rough cuts, the backseat business in the fields behind the school, the semi-precious dancing in the headlights, our bodies tripwire and baited spark. Wild-haired, breasty, the ones tonguing boys, the teasers, hoots and hollers, the polish of fame we could almost touch, a possibility of luster. We were the pretenders shoving hurt into overstuffed lockers, faux leather purses, faux smiles, revelers in a second-hand radiance, everything we had already used by the richer, pure, more refined. But we could strut hand-me-downs, smile a thank you and a fuck off at the same time, while shoplifting what we wanted. We were lesser jewels, but in the right light, my God, what brilliance. Love those girls. Okay, the final poem is much more serious, but kind of reflects one of Catherine's poems. Again, I'm standing in the kitchen and hearing another news report of another killing of kids. And of course, I wanted to rant and rave and tear my hair out, but I couldn't. I thought I had to do something else with that. I had to kind of dissect it a bit. So this is a poem called Newton's Laws, Angels Are Greater Than Angels, for the young victims of Uvalde, Oxford, Nickel Mines, Preckle, Newtown, Columbine, and on and on. And in Nickel Mines, if you remember, that's with the Amish school where the boys were let out and the girls were lined up and then shot. Wrecked, head in hands, no angels on the morning shift today. I know the laws of nature predict trajectories. 1, Newton's first law, an object moves in a straight line unless acted upon by a force. The angle of fire stopped by a child. Nothing for angels to rejoice in. I scarcely believe in them anyway, only in the absolute of small coffins. 2, Newton's second law. The acceleration of an object is directly related to the net force and inversely related to the mass. Net force, anger is greater than angels. Each bullet weighing so little, the smaller it is, the faster it goes. In Nickel Mines, the girls lined up, pop, pop. Hey, NRA, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and pretty little ones in a row. Angels have no weight in this equation. 3, Newton's third law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. No, the old man of science is wrong. Unless someone's weighing the implosion of hearts, no. Politicians angle dirty white hats, stick to their guns, bestow moments of silence, prayer, callously debate. How many angels can dance on the head of a firing pen? Thank you. Sorry to end at such a hard note, but it was an important poem and I did want to share it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Janet Rives reading from Arizona. And the first poem I'm going to read is the title poem from my book, Washed by a Summer Rain, Poems from the Desert, which was published by Kelsay last spring. Washed. My mother, in her decades away from the desert, must have longed for this creosote smell, for rain cooling a summer day, dust washed down to earth, clouds shrouding giant mountains, lungs filled with clarified air. I set the watering can by the patio, stand at the window and watch it fill. Summer rains, male rains as Native Americans say, mount in violence, presaged by distant rumbles, flashes of light. After 4 straight days over 105, moments when I could not place a finger on the steering wheel, when a morning walk was at 5:30 or not at all, I now delight in this cool afternoon dampness, aware that no shade tree, no jug of ice water could rival the relief this monsoon brings to birds, animals, reptiles, to all of us, washed down by a summer rain. And as an introduction to the second poem I'm going to read, before I made my way down to the Arizona desert, I spent about 4 decades in Iowa and a little bit of time in Nebraska. This poem is called Desert Autumn. No crimson canopy overhead, no leaves crunching underfoot, no open windows, cold mornings, scuffed cornfields, no orchard outing, baked apples, acorn squash, just a sunrise somewhat later, a sunset a bit earlier, the scent of air not on fire. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Victoria Twomey, and I'm going to be reading two poems from my book, Glimpse. And the first one is White Dress on a Clothesline. Who has left this delicate cotton cloth, hand-sewn with care to fit a young girl's shape, with its small white buttons, its white lace collar, pinned at the shoulders on this worn clothesline behind this empty farmhouse? The cloth is thin and made for dense summer days when this tree above would have been fertile green, when there would have been birds singing, a song for rising, a song for resting, a song by which to wander, a song to call the children home. More empty than the broken chairs on the collapsing porch, this abandoned house will soon be embraced by wild, come to claim, consume, console. One day it will call this cotton dress with its blue satin ribbon about the waist to rejoin the brown earth. This empty white dress, uplifted and released, ascending and descending in the chilly breeze. And the next one is Candy Hearts. Even now I recall, before you fell into that river making its way to the sea, how when this faithful daughter dropped the morphine upon your tongue, you opened your mouth like a baby bird, perceiving only flickering lights and darting shadows. Even then, I believed you would rise and walk again, as if miracles are handed out as easily as candy hearts to the good fathers, who, according to the laws of my bewildered mind, must remain glued to the spine of life, as if all your days were like the endless pages in an immortal book, decorated with tarot-like paintings of all the indelible people you had been, the son, the brother, the father, the mentor, the joker, the imperfect prince, the teacher, the musician, the artist, the lover, the husband, the friend. But never the ghost left empty-handed, passed over for a needed miracle. Even then, I believed you were the swimmer, too strong to be drowned in an ocean of stars. Thank you.
Those are lovely. Our two final readers are Neil Creighton and Lisa Grunberger. Neil is our featured reader. He is an Australian poet all the way from Sydney. His work is fueled by polar opposites, love for people. Excuse me, I just somehow clicked out of my, I'm having a hard time today. I just clicked out of my picture. There we go. I'm going to start over for Neil. His work is fueled by polar opposites. Love for people, beauty, creativity, the wonder of earth and its complex habitation, hatred for injustice, inequity, war, oppression, demagogy. Thankfully, in his personal life, the former dominates the latter, and he always strives to be gentle and kind. Thank you, Neil. And then Lisa.
Oh, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Delise. I'm going to read from my fourth book I've had published with Kelsay, the Colquhoun Chronicles. And I'm going to read from part two. Part one tells the story of Colquhoun, his search for his daughter. Part two is his daughter's story. And Miriam, she elopes when she's only 17 and disappears. And I tell her story in 25 Haibun. I'm going to read 7 of them to you today. The 7 I'm going to read concentrate on her marriage, and they take place over a period of years. And also, you have to bear in mind that what you're hearing here is the voice of a very young woman. So I'm going to start with the 4th of the Haibun in that cycle, and it's called The First Small Step. I am happy. A sensual world is opening. I feel passion and delight. I feel loved. I feel secure. Tony has a home, a productive farm, and more than enough money. I often sing to myself. To make my happiness complete, I would like a job, money of my own, and friends. I tell him how I have long dreamt of friendship and independence. You don't need money, he says, and you don't need a job. Let me know when you need money and I'll give it to you. And you know, my friends are your friends. It'll take a while, but you'll fit in. I smile and embrace him. I do not demur. His tone has told me that this is not for discussion. The snake's tongue flickers, scent glands alert and searching for soft-bodied prey. Number 7 is called Degree by Degree. It doesn't happen overnight. It shifts degree by degree as he gains more confidence in his control. Always, though, there are moments that stand out. One day, when he comes home, he doesn't embrace me. He barely speaks. He avoids my eyes. He runs his forefinger over an architrave, looks at it, and grunts. He walks to the pantry and opens the door. He is silent, looking around. Then he turns to me. Jeez, it's a fucking pigsty in here. Don't you ever fucking clean? I catch my breath. My mouth opens. I taste my fear. Have I seen this coming? I am his canvas. He owns the brushes and paint. He splashes where he wills. Against the wall. Tony loves his mates and he loves to go drinking with them. It is his regular weekend routine. This night, he has been on an all-night bender. It is 7 a.m. I am in the kitchen. I hear him open the door. He is very drunk. He leans against the wall. He looks at me. His upper lip curls. I see only challenge and contempt. That look says he can do what he likes when he likes, and there is not a thing I can do about it. The look says, get in your place. It says I am completely under his control. I have learnt to fear him, but the moment blazes beyond fear. I'm holding a glass of water. I throw the water on him. I see his anger rise and I recoil. He moves so fast. His hands dig cruelly into my upper arms. He is very strong. He lifts me off the ground and bangs me against the wall just once, but hard. I could fucking kill you, he says, still holding me against the wall. Then he lets go and staggers drunkenly away. I slide to the floor. I am winded. I try to breathe. I am so overcome. I cannot even weep. Held fast on the web, the moth, exhausted, resigned, ceases to struggle. The stooping hawk. Emboldened, he begins to stay out all night. I know he is seeing other women. He reeks of them. Then he stays out all weekend. Despite everything, I'm worried. I contact his friends. I can hear their lies. He returns, unapologetic. I'm in a rage. I fly at him, want to hurt him. He fends me off easily, pushes me against the wall, and bangs my head on the bricks. I think I faint. When I come to, he is sitting watching TV. When he looks at me, he smokes. The stooping hawk, feeling no pity for the prey, exults in the strike. Oblivion. I'm drinking a lot, far too much. There is comfort in oblivion. Easy to surrender to dull, blind night, forgetful of returning day. Darkness. I alternate between fight and flight. Drunk, I yell and scream at him. 2 police arrive. I pour out my heart to them. I sob. I plead for them to rescue me. Tony is calm and controlled, at his most charming. In the small community in which we live, he knows them both. I can see that the female officer, Constable Sue Jenkins, particularly likes him. When I become hysterical, she looks at him sympathetically. In his most sincere voice, he tells her that I have mental issues. He mentions schizophrenia, says I'm worse when I drink too much, says he's doing everything he can to help me. She says that they will come back tomorrow. I slide to the floor and sob while he walks them to the door. She'll be all right, he says, when she sobers up. Constable Jenkins looks at him and smiles. He closes the door. You stupid fucking bitch. Did you think you could get away with that? Darkness without hope. More empty, hollow, and bleak than Crow's desolate core. Isolation. He likes to provoke. He can be charming too. Then, if I let down my guard, he says terrible things. He likes to tear at the butterfly's wings, pull me apart little by little. He is an expert at that kind of cruelty. He has spent so much time and effort in isolating me. Now he condemns me for it. He is about to go out drinking. Before he leaves, he can't resist some passing swipes. You never want to do nothing. You got no friends. It used to be fun, but now you're just a waste of space. I stare at him. I will not argue or say a word. He will make it worse for me. Maybe he will even hit me. Aren't you going to say something? Just stand there staring at me. Geez, I'm going. You can just stay here. Worst day of my life meeting you. Get a grip and have a look at yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. You're letting yourself completely go. You look a wreck. You look like you're nuts, you know. A schizo. A complete psycho. He goes out, slamming the door. I know he will come home drunk. In the night, he may rise, oblivious from booze, and pee in the hall or in the walk-in wardrobe. He has done that more than once. I go to our bedroom. I open my wardrobe. I've been secreting away a little money whenever I can. I take it out and count it. It is thrilling to know that I have it, that I'm defying him, that I am planning escape. But will it be enough? Can I get away? Like a shaft of light descending through blue-black clouds, hope brightens the heart. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Can you do screen sharing, Olivia?
I can share what's on my desktop, but if you want to send me something real quick to share.
Oh, no, I don't have to. No, it's fine. It's
okay.
fine. I'll just read them.
I'll also I'll make you a co-host so you can share from your screen.
Oh, okay. That's great. Because I think it's just easier to have people see the poems.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you can follow along. I know it's always easier for me. Well, it's lovely to be here, and I just have to bow down to the minor miracles that are this team at Kelsay, Karen and Delisa and Olivia. And it's this is my book that they created for the future of girls. And we just had 35 people in Philadelphia at my Hanukkah party. Today is the third night of Hanukkah here in Philadelphia and everywhere. And I just sold like 6 copies of my book. So thank you, helping me pay my my mortgage. I'm going to, so I really just, your minor miracles, and everybody's wonderful. It's been a lovely night. I'll read 2 poems. This is called The Story of the Letter J. A J spray painted on my olive green house in South Philly. Its white hooked tail grazes my daughter's head. A skinhead, says my neighbor Jorge, un racista blanco, no entiendo, holding my hand inside his hand, far longer than any gringo would. He smells of sawdust and cologne. I shoot a picture with my phone of my daughter underneath the J. Evidence is always good to gather. She traces the letter with her small finger. She's just learning about how letters make words, and words make sentences. Doesn't yet know sentences can kill. Arbeit macht frei. Sentences can lie, make America great again. Sentences can heal. I have a dream. She's fished a pen from my bag and draws a K beside the J. A new story begins. Across the street, Mozart seeps out of the second story. 12-year-old Anita from China. Jorge and I look up as if music were something to be seen, as though it were something we could hold on to. I'll paint for you, he says solemnly. It will be like new, like it never happened. And this is a poem from the title of the book. It's the last book in the poem. That the book was just published in September, I believe, so I'm still my baby. It starts with an epigraph from Stalin. There is no art for art's sake. There are no and cannot be free artists, writers, poets, dramatists, directors, or journalists standing above the society. Nobody needs them. You cannot control what you will remember. Today it snows and the snow collects on the branches. In a room facing the street, 2 girls play. Their sentences and laughter mix with the sound of our neighbor shoveling, who is my father, shoveling snow on our driveway, and me looking out the window of my room above the garage at my father's dancing body, making the shovel look light when it is heavy. The scent of fried onions and boiled potatoes rises up the stairs. My mother stands at the kitchen counter squeezing a lemon over salad greens. The space between her teeth suddenly larger than yesterday. And sometimes she'll say, I will call the dentist to see how much it would cost to fix the space, which always surprises me because there's nothing about her that I think needs to be fixed. Just as my daughter says, do not color the gray with red because you're beautiful, mommy. No older than 35 plus, right? She winks at me, and this wink is sublime, the marrow of my world. As the lentil soup simmers, I read Brodsky's Nobel speech. Something has led me to him today. I read, too, how Lenin denounced his poetry as pornographic and anti-Soviet and sent him to a mental institute. He was charged with social parasitism in his 1964 trial. Today, I opened my eyes at 7:14. Our black tuxedo cat named Shy, which means gift in Hebrew, is coiled up beside my body. His sleepy bedroom eye is already full of the impending snow. I bury my face in his fur and inhale deeply. My feet touch the cold bathroom tiles. I pee and brush my teeth. Today, I bake gluten-free brownies with two little girls who stirred and the bowl the way I did when my mother and I baked almond crescent cookies. I see her strong hands rolling the dough into little moons and dusting the hot crescents with confectioner's sugar. Today I graded papers, made dinner, lit the Hanukkah candles, watched my husband shovel snow, hoping he would not get a heart attack. In saying so, be careful not to get a heart attack, I say, as he slips the one leather glove that remains from last year's gift onto his right hand. And what about your other hand? I ask him as he opens the door. Either he did not respond, or I do not remember, or it was the wind or the snow or the girls playing with the Barbie Adventure House. And later, while my daughter dreams upstairs, I work as a poet downstairs. And thankfully, no one, not even my lost parents, cares. My father steps aboard a boat named the Noemi Julia. He's 19, a boy from Berlin who loves to tinker with clocks and radios. In 1939, he steps on a boat that will take him to Cyprus with onions on his breath. I think of my father as I chop onions. The girls are hungry and stand waiting for hot brownies. My eyes tear. Why are you crying, Mommy? Are you sad that the snow will turn to ice? Are you sad Alexandra cannot stay for dinner? The girls sit at the table. Their feet do not touch the floor. Chocolate at the corner of their pink mouths. They lick their fingers. No, thank you. Yes, please. I don't care for milk. We live for each other, or not at all. My mother died before she fixed her teeth. I buried her as Jews do in a plain pine box. I kiss her cold face. I say words in Hebrew I don't fully understand that have to do with God, mercy, memory, and peace. Since they lowered the lid, I have never been the same. I do the dishes after my daughter sleeps. Outside, red and white Christmas lights blink on and off. Snow covers the city streets. My dead are never far from me. Joe, this is my art for art's sake. A woman's tears chopping onions, remembering for the future of girls and their polite dangling feet on an average winter day with the omniscient missing God. Thank you. Blessings to all of you.
Thank you so much. That was so wonderful. My own mother just passed away. That poem
so
just
sorry.
really got to me. But
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Karen.
That's okay. It's totally fine. I didn't know I was gonna break down, but it was a beautiful poem.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
I think we've done really well. It's 4:30 and everybody's been so great at keeping to the right time, and I appreciate everyone coming here today and being part of this. And I think we're probably going to be having another one sometime in the spring. So I hope you can all join in again and we can see you then. Thank you.